Noah builds an ark, gets into the ark. Genesis 7. Then the Lord said to Noah, go into the ark, you and your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. We've heard that before. That's the point. When you read narrative literature, look for the clues. Noah has a righteous heart. That's why God is showing him mercy. Now, the first time he said things are coming in twos. Now he's talking about sevens. Take with you 7 pairs of clean animals, male and its mate, a pair of animals that are not clean, male and his mate. Why 7? Well, you're going to see that there's going to be sacrifice afterwards. So if he only has 2 and he kills them, there goes the species. But the whole concept of clean and unclean hasn't even been introduced in the law yet, because that's going to come with Moses after he writes this, after they come out of Egypt. But apparently Noah must have known this ahead of time. So God's preparing for that. So take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, male and his mate, pair of animals that are not clean, male and his mate, 7 pairs of birds of the heavens also, male and female, keep their offspring alive on the face of the earth. On 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Every living thing I made I will blot out from the face of the ground. Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. Now Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came upon the earth. Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons, remember Shem, Ham, and Japheth, their wives and Noah's wife, they went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Now, of the clean animals, now, this is the first time we're hearing about clean, unclean. This is going to become something that is important under the law of Moses, but it's sort of being introduced backdoor here by Moses as he's writing this. So we're kind of learning about it, but don't know much about it yet. Clean animals and of animals that are not clean, and of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground, 2 and 2, male and female, went into the ark with Noah as God had commanded Noah. That's the important part. He's righteous, does what God says. After 7 days, the waters of the flood came on the earth. The 600th year of Noah's life. They lived a long time before the flood. The second month, on the 17th day of the month, on the day that all the fountains, this is important, I'm in verse 11, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. Implication, it hadn't rained up until that point. Rain fell upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. God was watering the ground subterraneously. And now all of a sudden, we're having this, maybe it was a canopy that breaks down from the heavens. And the ground is breaking up. You've got to account for all this water, by the way. There's not enough water in the atmosphere to flood an entire earth. But there is if there's a canopy of water there. And there is if you got to put the water somewhere if it comes down. And it is if the continents break up. Now, I know with geology, modern day geology, you look at like South America and Africa and they sort of fit. And they say, well, continental drift over millions or billions of years. Well, if all of this doesn't happen in geological time, which assumes a consistent geological clock, but happens quickly with a clock that happens by a catastrophic event like a global flood, well, you can still have the continental drift. It just happens at a shorter period of time, especially if the fountains of the great deep burst forth, verse 11, and the windows of the heavens were opened. There you go. So you don't have to have millions or billions of years of continental drift, but it still looks like they broke apart. Rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Verse 12. Verse 13. On this very same day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah's wife and the 3 wives of the sons with them entered the ark. They and every beast according to its kind, and all livestock according to their kinds, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth according to its kinds, every bird according to its kind, every winged creature, according to its kind, according to its kind, according to its kind. You can't miss Genesis 1 and 2. God's redoing the creation. He's preserving it. They went into the ark with Noah, 2 and 2 of all flesh, in which there was the breath of life. Those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded, and the Lord shut them in. There's his protection. The flood continued for 40 days on the earth. The waters increased, bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed, increased greatly on the earth. The ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heavens were covered. Waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. That's a lot of water. which often makes you think there must have been some sort of water canopy that collapsed, and the deep would have had to break up to account for the pouring out of all this water. And by the way, things like the Grand Canyon, which shows such erosion happening, if it didn't happen with a geological clock that was consistent over time, but cataclysmic events, it could have happened very quickly. Verse 19, all the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. Verse 20, the waters prevailed above the mountains, covered them 15 cubits deep, and all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarmed on the earth, and all mankind. Everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out everything that was on the face of the ground. Man, animals, creeping things, birds of the heavens, they were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed on the earth for 150 days. What just happened? God got tired of the violence of man and wiped them out. But it also affected the planet. Of all of those with the breath of life, over which we're supposed to have had regency. We're supposed to rule over the earth and subdue it. But because of our violence, God wiped it out. But righteousness was found in Noah. He obeyed God. And we'll see that that theme goes through the Bible. We'll find it in Abraham, as Abraham comes on the scene in Genesis 12. And that Abraham is a righteous man, and that righteousness comes because he's a man of faith. But for now, what we're seeing is God is acting. And he's acting against the rebellion, against the sin. We've seen the sin in heaven, we've seen the sin on earth, and now we're seeing that God is beginning to redeem, he's beginning to change, he's beginning to rescue. And first he's going to rescue the planet and the few people, and then he's going to start again. But the problem's not going to go away. The problem is still going to be there. And then we're going to see how God deals with the problem of sin, which can't be washed away by a flood.